got you muted until she puts her. Now, Kate is going to a stream or what? Turn him back on. You getting him? If you want, I can change his belt pack to one of the other ones that we have assigned to handheld. I can sync it to any channel you want. I'll just repass it. Andrew, if you want, I can just resync. Oh. Does that phone you? It's just a precaution.
7, 6, 5, 4.
He's good. You're
5.
good. All is right in the world. You're doing a demo with your hands with the camera. That makes total sense.
Yeah, I think the problem was that we were told that there was a bunch of interference.
Well, there was.
And so,
now,
yeah.
Like, it's the end of the friggin' show, and we worked it all out.
Yeah. So I'd much rather do this than.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're here. That's why
Yeah.
we have.
Yeah. Absolutely. Still waiting.
I'll make you live for a quick millisecond. So.
Okay.
Like a couple clicks.
Yeah, something like that. Got him? All right.
We good?
So when she intros you, he'll turn you up.
Okay.
So you don't have to do anything.
Okay. I'm gonna head out now. Thank you. Hey, Sean. Sean. I don't know the answer to that question.
What's up? Yeah, it does. It uses the 6K image now, and you can have 4K live from it.
And you tested it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that the only?
But you can also it depends on what your master resolution.
So I can render out 6.
Hello, everyone in the Panasonic booth. Welcome to day 4 of CES. We are about to start our very last Tech Talk here on the main stage at the back of the booth. So I want to invite you guys over. If you are a videographer, a photographer, a content creator, or just into cameras, this is definitely one you are going to want to watch. If you guys are out there wondering what makes LUMIX great for videographers, you are going to want to see this next Tech Talk. LUMIX has built up a reputation for being a true hybrid photo and video camera. Learn about the features that are specifically designed to empower videographers and cinematographers to bring their visions to life. And we've got a special treat for you up here. Our host is Matt Frazier, Business Development Manager. Take it over, Matt. What you got for us?
Thank you, Rosalie. Honestly, I think we need to bring you on to LUMIX Live all the time. So Sean's going to have to hire you on. Intros all the time for Sean Robinson. I appreciate it. So.
I'm with you guys. Anytime,
All right.
anytime.
Thank you.
Like I told Sean yesterday, I'm used to being on that side of the camera,
Yes.
but I am very happy to learn about the other side too.
All right. All right, so I am your temporary host of LUMIX Live, Matt Frazier. Those of you who watch our show normally, Sean will be back. He hasn't left the company. It's not true that Las Vegas kidnapped him forever. He will be back. So today what we're going to be talking about are the video features that LUMIX incorporates in our products. There's a certain YouTuber I have a lot of conversations with. He says it's what makes us our LUMIX S, what makes a product LUMIX S in our products. So before we get started on that topic, there was one question that came into a chat earlier this week that Sean's gone ahead and tested, so I want to address that right away. Those of you on the live stream, the question was about live cropping, which is a feature that Panasonic offers where you can actually have the camera do pans of your subject instead of having to pan with your camera in real time. The question was, now that we're a 6K camera, do you have the ability to do 4K live cropping? And the answer is yes, you can absolutely do 4K live cropping now with the S5 Mark II. So today we're going to be talking about the S5 Mark II and its video-centric features and how to take the best advantage of those. So what's important to note first is that on a LUMIX camera, we have a mode dial on the top here, and this mode dial has the P, A, S, and M. That's a program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual settings. It's important to note that these are for photography. They're not for video. If you press the record button for video, it's auto video. It's not going to do any sort of manual controls. So the way you gain access to your manual controls is you're going to turn this little wheel to the movie camera symbol. When you turn to the movie camera symbol, and then we go into the camera's menu system, what we'll see is in our top option is where we can now control program, aperture, shutter, or manual. And inside the camera, we can actually segment these features. So you can literally have a completely independent set of settings for your video work versus a completely separate set of settings for your photo work or video work. So you don't have to worry about like picture profiles being mingled or the shutter speed changing when you go from video to photo. So today we're going to go ahead and set this to program just for today's broadcast, and we're going to walk through the menu and go through some of the things that are unique in our product. So what's important to note is that our menu system is segmented in tabs, right? So we have a tab at the left as a picture of a movie camera. As I go to the right, these are sub-tabs, and then we'll have the list of features in a sub-tab. So the top two options have to do with adjusting image quality in our cameras. This is where you'll do things like choose your photo style. So if you want to do I call these film simulations. So if you want to have a film-styled look, you can choose different film looks in the file. In this case, we're doing like 709 because that's our television broadcast standard. We're doing a broadcast right now. So we leave it in that like 709 profile for what we're doing today. The second page is going to give us additional access to things that will impact picture quality. The next menu I want to touch base on, though, is the image format, because this is where we'll be making a lot of choices and changes today. So the camera will default in the MP4 mode, and so the first thing I'd advise any filmmaker is to come in here and change this to MOV, because if we're in MP4, we're going to have very basic video features we can shoot with in terms of codecs. If we go to MOV, that's when we get what I call the big boy features. These are the big boy codecs that are designed for high quality deliverables. Once we're here, this is now where I'm going to be able to choose the resolution and the frame rate of my video files. So in this case, I'm shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second. You can see that we're using 420 color, and we're in a 10-bit file. In MP4, I don't have access to 10-bit files, so you're going to want to use your 10-bit file options every chance you get. That's why you want to be in the MOV format. So we're going to keep this back in 4K 60. Now, I also want to quickly walk through, because I think a lot of us who do video, we forget that audio is half the experience, and it can be 100% of the frustration from your audience. So if you have a scratchy beard like I have, and something's scratching against it, that's going to be picked up by your audience pretty quickly. It's important that you're monitoring your audio and you have lots of adjustment and control so that when problems happen, you can tell your talent, we got to stop. Or if your talent talks too loud or too quiet periodically, you can make audio adjustments. So let's talk about all of the control we have for audio in the S5II. So first off, if you look in the menu right now, I have no way to tell how my audio sounds. I don't have any meters up on the screen. And so we have the ability to turn on meters that'll show up on the screen. And in the S5II, you have the ability to choose the size of these meters. If I want them to be really large and take up a lot of space on the LCD, or if I want them to take a small amount of space on the LCD. And then what I do is I turn them on. And now if you look in the lower left-hand corner of the image, now I have the audio levels for channel 1 and channel 2. In fact, you also have the ability to turn on 4 channels of audio, so you can listen, so you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the screen if you needed to. In terms of the sound record gain level, I think this is one of the biggest differentiators for Panasonic Lumix and other brands. When you buy one of these mirrorless style cameras or a DSLR camera and you bring in a microphone, the problem is some microphones are hotter or they're more sensitive to sound. And if they're more sensitive to sound and your preamp stage can't handle that, you'll constantly peak out the audio and you'll hear it clip. So we offer you 2 gain stages for audio. You have the standard gain stage, and we have a low gain stage for microphones that aren't as sensitive. So once we choose our gain stage, then we have our sound recording level. And most cameras give you up to a maybe 10 to 12 plus dB gain. But what they also do is usually only stop at about a -12 for attenuation. We give you all the way down to -18, so you have lots of adjustment potential with this camera's analog stage. And I think that this is one of the big differentiators for our brand, is just how flexible we are for adjusting your audio. Now, once you've set your levels, your talent is inevitably going to either talk a little quiet, or they're going to talk really loud. And when they do that, we want the microphone to be able to stay normalized. We want it when it's a little quiet, we want the camera to lift the quiet stage. And when they get loud, we want it to cut it. And we want that to do the work for us, because they don't have a whole sound team like I do right now behind the stage. So that's where the sound rec limiter comes in. And this will help to keep everything more normalized so your talent's fluctuations in sound don't impact the broadcast. And then in terms of microphone compatibility, some microphones are powered, and they can be powered through the camera itself. And so that's the top mic option will actually pull power. Then the next mic option is for unpowered mics, where you have to put batteries in the microphone. And another unique benefit to Lumix is that we offer a line output as well. So by doing line inputs, that means I can connect this into an audio mixer, and that's going to give me a lot more flexibility. So I'm going to keep this back on regular mic. And then on our second page of levels, this is where we have adjustments for specialized mic situations. Panasonic makes a mic. It's our RS2 microphone. It has a stereo array in the top and it has a shotgun array in the front. And this allows you to switch between the two in this menu option. We have an XLR adapter that can be connected to the top of the camera, and that gives me 2 channels of XLR audio. And then I can choose, do I want 2 channels of audio or do I want 4 channels of audio? Because I can use 2 inputs on the camera already, and then those are 2 extra channels. And then in terms of the headphone volume, you can adjust it here. And then your sound monitoring, whether I'm going to be monitoring 1 and 2, or if I'm going to be monitoring 3 and 4, or if I'm going to be monitoring all channels at the same time. I can make all of those selections from this menu. So quickly, I'm just going to check the chat to see if we have any questions from the field that have to do with any of what we've talked about thus far. So at this point, most of the questions I'll be answering here in a little bit, so we're going to keep moving on. So as we continue down the camera's menu system, there are a few features that are very unique to the LUMIX brand, in particular in this category. We really cut our teeth in this industry in the cinema space. And so cinematographers, they have a different term for shutter speed. You know, photographers and like video shooters, we call it shutter speed. And we look at it as like percentages of a second, like a 48th of a second, a 24th of a second. Well, cinematographers are taught totally differently. They're taught something called shutter angle. And this is because we didn't have a mechanical shutter in a movie camera, because you'd have to replace it like every day, and it would get like very expensive. We would have a spinning shutter. And what you do is you cut an angle out of that shutter to expose the film stock. So we use a term called shutter angle, which tells us how many degrees of exposure we're using. And so we offer access to shutter angle for cinematographers. And then for really die-hard video shooters, instead of the term ISO, which is a film term, we offer dB of gain for those people who are used to using video cameras. So I'm going to switch this over to shutter angle because that's what I'm comfortable using. And once you're in shutter angle, you have the ability then to change the shutter speed. And instead of it showing a percentage, on the screen now you can say it says 216 with a degree symbol. That's the shutter speed we're using right now, so that there's no flicker when we use my camera with some of the lights that are in the facility right now. So that shutter angle feature is very unique in the mirrorless category. You usually have to buy a cinema camera to get that feature. So we also have features that are designed to be used in both photo and video. And we put those into our COG tab, or the gear tab, depending on what country you're from. So in the gear tab, at the top of the menu system, this is where we have the ability to do things like change the photo style. I showed you one way to do it. This is another way we can adjust our film style settings. One of my favorite features of our camera is something called our LUT library. So LUTs are a way for us to apply a look to the video image. I can make that look appear like it'll be after post-production. And this has to do with when we shoot something called a log profile, or a logarithmic profile. That's a fancy way of saying it's really flat and ugly looking, but it gives us a lot of potential to process it in post and get the maximum dynamic range out of the sensor. So in LUT library, we have the ability now to load up to 10 LUTs. So the camera will come stock with a LUT that is a standard television LUT called a 709 LUT. But you can see I have 2 LUTs that are loaded in the camera. One of them is to simulate the look of one of my competitors' log profiles. So I'm able to bring in Vlog as our native profile, and then I can make it work with another cinema camera. So in this case, I have 2 different cinema camera simulations that will work in post with other cinema cameras. And then we have a one that Sean's created called our Cyberpunk LUT. So the way we load them is pretty simple. You just pick an empty LUT location. You press the set button, press load, and if there's one on your memory card, you'll see a list of them, and you just add that LUT to that position. Obviously, these 3 are already in there, so I'm not going to add it again. So aside from this, I'm going to go into some of the video-centric menus and screen options we have for helping you to better set your exposure and make sure that you're not overexposing images. So photographers are used to something called a histogram, and they'll use this to determine if something's overexposed. But video shooters are more used to something called a waveform monitor or a vector scope. These are the tools that we use, and Panasonic offers you access to waveform monitors and vector scopes. So we have the ability to select a waveform monitor or a vector scope. I'll turn on waveform monitor right now so you can see it. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys can't see it right now. I forgot it doesn't output live over HDMI, so you're not going to be able to see it. So I'll turn that off. But vector scope and waveform monitor are available on our cameras, and you'd see them on the back of the LCD screen here. We also give you additional tools for setting exposure. One of my favorite tools we have for exposure in the camera is something called the luminance spot meter. So the luminance spot meter Oops. It's just this little box. And wherever I move this box, it's going to tell me how over or underexposed I am in that given part of the frame. So I have the box set right in the, kind of in the middle, and as I pan up, you'll see that that LUMIX stand over there, that is now 48%, almost to, it's halfway to clipping, basically, is what it's telling us. If I point this at the LCD screen here, where this white area is, I'm now up to 20%, because immediately the minute I do it, it goes away. We'll go over here, and we can see we're now at 90-ish%, so we're almost clipping on that Bosch sign that's over there. And so I can move that box around and tell what's been overexposed or underexposed, and then make my adjustments accordingly in the camera. So another cool feature is we have frame markers built into the camera. So frame markers allow me to show my talent, or as a camera operator, I'm able to see what the final deliverable will be depending on what we're doing. So right now I'm shooting in 16:9 aspect ratio, but if I'm going to deliver some content to TikTok, as an example, I can put up a set of 9:16 frame guides. I can change the color of them if I'd like, and I can add a frame mask so that outside that region it's a little tinted. And then I can go ahead and turn on those frame markers. And now you can actually see what the TikTok deliverable will be at the same time I'm shooting for YouTube. A way to expand this even further would be to shoot an open gate, which we've already discussed earlier in the week, which is a larger framing. We're using, instead of a 16:9 frame, we're using a 3:2 frame, or we're using the entire sensor to be able to capture video, and then we can go ahead and crop out 16:9 or 9:16 images. I'm going to turn those frame markers off because they can get a little distracting. So a feature that I'm a big fan of in our cameras is something called an anamorphic D-squeeze function. So I love anamorphic lenses. They create a very cinematic look. It's what people like J.J. Abrams and Steven Spielberg have used for decades to create that real wide aspect ratio that we've all come to love. And it creates a real unique sort of lens flare. It's an elongated lens flare. You get, lens flares. And then like the defocused areas, like if you have bright lights, instead of them being round balls, they become oval. It creates a real cool look. The problem is that the image is squeezed when it comes into the camera with an anamorphic lens. We're literally making it tall and skinny. Well, with the LUMIX cameras, we offer you the ability to de-squeeze anamorphic lenses. And you can choose the de-squeeze based on the lens you're using. So we offer 130, we offer 133, we offer 1.5, 1.8, and the classic 2x de-squeeze. And now that I've turned it on, you'll get a de-squeezed image on the LCD screen built into the camera, or also in a live stream. So if I'm doing a live stream, I can get that image as well. So we also have tools for hybrid log gamma. This is a way to record video in HDR so that it's ready to be played on an HDR television set. The reason we use HLG for this is that HLG is backward compatible with a standard dynamic range television set. So if I were to record in like an HDR10 format, which is called PQ, it would only really look right on an HDR TV. So this gives us the ability to have a flexible file that'll work on a regular TV or an HDR television set. So now that we've gone through some of the features of the camera, let's talk. I'm going to first check the notes. Let me see what kind of questions we're getting asked in the chat. So there's a question about webcam use. Will it be available with the LUMIX webcam software? So we've actually, yes, it'll absolutely be able to work with LUMIX webcam. So if you want to use this as a webcam, 100% you can do it, and you can even de-squeeze anamorphic lenses. So if you want the world's coolest webcam, add an anamorphic lens to the camera. So the question is, the camera uses the S&Q options, but now in 10-bit. So S&Q, for those of you in the audience, that stands for slow and quick. We offer a slow-mo function built into the camera, and we also offer a time-lapse that's very easy to use. It's just called the S&Q. Yes, S and Q is now 10 bits, so no more 8-bit S and Q. So I'm just going through to see what questions are here. So that answers most of the questions that Sean hasn't already picked up. So I think we're good with those questions. So now that we've discussed a little bit about how some of the features that make this a more cinema-centric or video-centric camera, let's talk a little bit about how we would use them. So one of the features we've added to the camera is something called real-time LUT. And I'm going to go ahead and show you real-time LUT in 2 different flavors. So what we'll do is we go into the camera's menu, and we're going to go to those picture profiles, our photo styles, our film simulations. And as we choose different film simulations, we can see that log profile, which I told you looks really flat and very difficult to, it doesn't look great, but it gives you amazing latitude. Well, if you want that latitude, but you don't want to have to edit it, you can always work with somebody to create a LUT, or you can find a LUT online that you love, and then you can actually have that LUT baked in. And so that's what real-time LUT does. So real-time LUT is going to be based on our vlog profile. So this is what the camera is seeing. And then what I'm able to do is I can go into the list of LUTs I have. And so in this case, I'm going to simulate another camera's log file. I'm going to take vlog, and I'm going to turn it into another camera's log. And so when I do this, now I'm shooting in another brand camera's look because I've loaded that LUT. And that way if someone says, hey, hey Sean, I want you to go ahead and come out and shoot with me, but guess what? This is an Aries shoot. I'm going to be shooting Alexa. Can you give me a log look that looks like Alexa? Great, we've now done that. So now it saves time for post to be able to do their job. I can also just add a regular LUT if I want as well. So I just go and hit the display button again. I'm sorry, LUT select button. And then from here, I can choose the vlog to 709. And now I've got dynamic range, and then it's going to have a finished look. So now I get the proper color and everything we want. I can record that, and I get the added dynamic range of log, and now it saves me a step in post. But there's another way you can do this, because a lot of people love like our natural picture profile, or they love our Cine-like D, but they want to apply their own customized kind of style to it. So what you do is you go from the real-time LUT menu. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to one of our My Photo Styles. So you can program up to 4 of your own unique photo styles into this camera. And as we go down, we can even customize a little here if we want, so I can add sharpness or contrast. I can change the hue or the saturation if I want. Or I can go into a computer program like Photoshop or Lightroom, DaVinci Resolve, any of those programs, and I can create my own look, and I can save it out as what we want to do as a .cube file. And so I can pick a standard profile I like from Panasonic, and then I can add this special sauce to make my images look different than my competition. And so what I do is I go to the LUT setting, which is at the very bottom. And from LUT, I'm going to press my select option. And this time we're going to use Sean's world-famous cyberpunk look. So we're going to take it to cyberpunk. And now I'm applying that cyberpunk LUT to our traditional standard picture profile. And now we've got a very purple, very much a John Wick style of look to the video footage that we're shooting here. And I can quickly and easily change this to whatever look I want. And so a lot of people thought it was odd that we were doing like 10 LUTs. Like, why are you letting this bring in 10 LUTs? I will never need 10 LUTs I don't want to provide my client the option of looking at 10 different LUTs before they have to pick the final deliverable. That's not why we did that. We did it because we wanted to provide you with the ability to do lots of different looks in the camera and give you a lot of flexibility, because you may need to match other cameras, or you may have specific looks and formulations for your own looks that you want to be able to bake in so you have very fast turnaround times. So with that, let me go and see if we have any final questions. Okay. So Sean's telling me you have a question about slow and quick versus, I'm assuming versus VFR? Yeah, so some of you who are like S1H users or GH6, GH5 users, you're probably used to our VFR function. And VFR is awesome because it offers tremendous flexibility. Problem is, it offers tremendous flexibility, which means there's a lot of options and choices. So we've tried to make it a little more simple by including our S&Q mode. I'm also going to turn this LUT off. Sorry, Sean. Okay, so now that we turn the LUT off, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the S&Q mode. So S&Q is a mode option on the top of the screen. So on the mode dial, we just flip the little switch over. Now I'm in S&Q mode. And what S&Q mode is going to do is in the video available recording qualities, it's going to limit you to only the qualities that you have access to create a slower, quick file. So in this case, we're going to go to full high definition just so you can see everything we can do. It's going to take a second. It's probably going to freak out the video feed, so hopefully it doesn't. We're back, so we're good. So now we can choose. So what we're doing is what I just selected is what is going to be the delivered frame rate. In this case, it's going to be 24 frames a second. Now I'm going to pick how many frames per second am I going to actually shoot. So if I go to the left, I'm going to shoot at 1 frame per second. And that's going to be a time lapse, and it's going to build a video feed for me. On the other end, if I want slow-mo, because the poet laureate, Dave Chappelle, said everything's better in slow motion, I have the ability to choose up to 120 frames per second. And when I choose 120 frames per second, we're going to pick on Sean a little bit here. We can still get autofocus. So we still have the ability to even have our face detection work in AF when I actually have it turned on correctly. So all of our autofocus functionality will still work. Human detection, face and eye, all that still works in slow-mo. Now, if I go beyond 120 to 150, I'll be in manual focus only. And if I go to 180, there's going to be a little bit of a crop on the sensor. So that's how our S&Q mode works on the S5 Mark II. And we're about 2 minutes left in the broadcast, so let's see what other questions we might have. So here's a question from Joseph I will ask, because I know it's going to make Sean nervous. Do we have any plans on making an anamorphic lens under the LUMIX brand? And I see June here laughing right now. So just so we know, Sean and I have absolutely requested anamorphics. We have a whole plan. We have a whole concept. And fortunately, Panasonic has engineers and business planning people who know how few lenses we'd actually sell if we did anamorphics. So unfortunately, we're not going to be venturing into anamorphic lenses. There are tremendous anamorphic lenses already available on the market, many L-mount options. I'd suggest taking a look at what's available on the market today. It would be really tough for us to bring something different than what we're seeing right now already available. So we got a little comment. Yes, to S&Q with auto balance. Dave's Nature Products, yes, you are right. That is awesome. We can now do autofocus from S&Q. You are right. So a comment actually. I think the engineers who came up with the idea to put a fan in the viewfinder are just brilliant. Sean, that was your idea, right? You came up with that in your garage, if I'm not. No, obviously it was our engineers who came up with that. And we fully plan to give a Nobel Peace Prize to the man who invented that, so we're going to figure that out. We were just as excited. You got to understand, Sean and I have known about this for a little while now. The first moment we saw that fan, we were like, oh man, everybody's going to freak out about this. This is a brilliant design choice. So we completely agree. With that, I think we are at a time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the conversation. We're going to return back to our normal scheduled broadcasts for LUMIX Live. So next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Sean Robinson will be back in his home. Hopefully he makes it back from Las Vegas. And we'll be having our broadcast next week. So please tune in next week and have a terrific week, everybody. Good night.